To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.
So my dear children, in the earlier chapter we discussed several things regarding the cyclone, right? Now we are going to find out what are the other details contained within a cyclone effect, my dear children. So you are given with a point in here. So here now we are going to compare the above experiences with the action of a cyclone. So can you remember at the end of the previous chapter we discussed about a incident related to a cyclone. Over there, my dear children, we have discussed, right, an experience which has occurred, right, during the year 2000, right, about a cyclone. Over there we identified that within a certain area, right, in the Trincomalee, right, wind blew suddenly with heavy rains. Then once again there was a an interval where there was no wind or any other rain. Then my dear children, once again, right, after that time interval, again rain and the wind has occurred, but the wind blew to the opposite direction at the second instance, right? So I hope that you could remember that incident. Now we are going to compare the scientific explanation with the explanation given previously, or with the incident, with the the experience given in the previous slide. We are going to give out a scientific explanation for that experience related to the cyclone. So within the cyclone, winds viral very fast, and that viral moves in a certain direction. We know that in a cyclone, winds are going to viral, and these virals are going to rotate very fast to a certain direction. After a strong blowing of wind from one direction comes a state of tranquility. That is when the eye of the cyclone passes through that point. Can you remember, my dear children? Within the structure of a cyclone, there is one thing called the eye. Now, eye is calm area, right? Eye is a calm area, means that over there, right, the winds and the rain is very less. So it's keep rotate and going to travel through the certain area. Then my dear children, from when traveling through a certain area, what will happen? When traveling through a certain area, right, it will create winds and also heavy rains. But however, you know that when it is going to pass, for that same area, the eye region would also come. So which means when the eye region is going to come to that particular area or to the particular region, what will happen here is specially that area will not receive any rain or wind. It's mainly because, my dear children, right, you know that eye of the cyclone do not carry heavy winds or heavy rain, right? So there is a certain time period when you come across with cyclone, there's going to be a certain time period which the wind and the rain is going to be reduced for a certain while. Once again, then what will happen? See, after a strong blowing wind from one direction comes a state of tranquility. That is when the eye of the cyclone passes through that point. When the other part of the viral passes that point, a speedy wind, as was the first one, blows in the opposite direction. Now that's the first half, no? So first half is rotating like this and it's going to travel away, right? Then the eye of the cyclone will come to that particular region, then what will happen? The wind will travel to the opposite direction, wind will flow to the opposite direction and will travel around the area, the same area, right? So my dear children, you can clearly observe here, right? Even though now we think that this condition is finished, it's not going to be, because in a cyclone there are three main regions three main regions. First, the first region and the last region are having heavy amount of rain and wind. However, the center, the eye of the cyclone, do not have any wind or rain. So therefore, when a cyclone is passing through a certain area, after certain time period, my dear children, a calm environment would create because of the passing of eye area. Then after that, once again, it will going to be worse because the wind will flow to the opposite direction, right? So it's very important to note out that thing, my dear children, right? So this is how a cyclone is going to occur usually, right? So then you are given with a table in here, information about some cyclones that affected Sri Lanka in the past 50 years. In the past 50 years, some incidents related to cyclones are given here. Starting from 1964 to 2016, we can observe several cyclones entered to Sri Lanka. So check the dates. 1964, 22nd December, Trincomalee hit with a cyclone, right? That means that this is the area which the cyclone entered to the Sri Lanka, from Trincomalee area. The number of deaths were more than 1,000. Then 1978, 22nd November, from Batticaloa area, right, a certain cyclone entered. So the death count was more than 915. Then next one given, 1992, 12th November, from Pothuil region, the cyclone came to the Sri Lanka. So the death count is around 4. The next one, in year 2000, 26th December, this was the thing that we discussed earlier, my dear children. So from the Trincomalee region, cyclone came to the Sri Lanka and death count was around 17. Then on 2008, 25th November, from the eastern coast, a cyclone came to Sri Lanka and nearly, there was death toll around 15. Okay. Then, my dear children, on 15th May 2016, from the eastern coast, once again, a cyclone came, and from that, there were 101 death tolls. So these are several cyclones which hit Sri Lanka, and you can see that most of these cyclones entered from Trincomalee Batticaloa region, from eastern coast, from eastern coast. And my dear children, the other specialty here is that usually cyclones are coming in the months of November to December, usually these things are coming from the months of November to December, right? Okay. So, according to the above table, what are the months in which most of the cyclones affected Sri Lanka had occurred? So, you are being asked with the question to the table, right? According to the given table, which months, in which months, my dear children, you have been asked in which months does the Sri Lanka is going to suffer with cyclones the most. So as you can see here, if you check the table quite carefully, you can see that from November to December, November-December time period, so during that time period, Sri Lanka has suffered with more amounts of cyclones. Then next one, from which areas had cyclones entered to Sri Lanka? Usually it has entered from the eastern coast. usually entered from the eastern coast, right? Okay, right, my dear children. So as you can see here, most of the times eastern coast is the one which is going to suffer heavily from cyclones, my dear children. For for the other areas also there can be rain and heavy winds, but however most of the times, right, most of the times for these eastern coast areas the damage would be high. Okay, right. Then, my dear children, you are given with a point. It may be clear to you that most of the cyclones that defected, right, most of the cyclones that defected Sri Lanka had occurred in November and December, and they had entered Sri Lanka from the eastern coast. So from the eastern coast they have entered to the Sri Lanka, right? In 1978, the death toll due to cyclones was 915. However, since warnings could be given because of the development of technology, the number of deaths could be reduced in subsequent cyclones. Now, you know that within these time periods, my dear children, we have very good and far better technology rather than the 1960s or 1970s. Now we have even good warning systems about cyclones and other types of natural disasters. So that means, my dear children, we can minimize the effect given out by the cyclones up to a certain level within these days, my dear children, right? Within these days, we can reduce the damage given out by the cyclones because of the advanced technology that we have, especially with the warning systems and especially with the meteorological department, right? Because they are giving good update about the cyclones which can happen within the recent future. And my dear children, if there is going to be a cyclone, then definitely through mass media or by different kinds of information systems, we receive the information that we need, right? And because of that, my dear children, we can actually minimize the death toll and the disasters which is going to happen because of the cyclones. So here it is also given during the 1964, right, the death count was around 915, but however when you come to modern, recent years, the death count is keep getting reduced. Okay, right. Then, for extra knowledge, most of the storms affecting to Sri Lanka are born in the Bay of Bengal. So Bay of Bengal is the main reason for the creation of several cyclones. All of these things are getting originated right from the Bay of Bengal, right? That is the area which these cyclones are going to originate from. So those low pressure conditions, depressions are going to create within those within that particular area, my dear children, and it's going to flow towards us. Okay, right. Then, my dear children, in here, right now we have studied how these violent winds are going to flow within a cyclone. Now by doing a certain activity, we are going to investigate further how this flow is going to happen, right? So we're going to identify, right, we're going to demonstrate in here the movement of air currents during a cyclone by using water. Okay, by using water we are going to demonstrate how the air particles are going to circulate during a cyclone. So you are given with these materials then. So first of all, you'll be needing these materials in doing this. So you'll be needing two plastic bottles. Then, my dear children, we'll be needing some water. Then tape, sellotape, or else gum tape or any other, right, tape. Then pieces of papers. So these are the ones which you need. You'll be needing two plastic bottles, water, tape, right? so that you can wrap the two plastic bottles together, then pieces of paper. So these are the ones which you need in doing this activity. Now let's head on to see how to carry out the activity then. Take two identical transparent plastic bottles. Fill about 4/3 of one of them with water. Color the water or put some pieces of paper into water. You can either color with water, or else we have used pieces of papers now. So you can insert that pieces of paper into the water, right, like this. Then place the mouth of the empty bottle on the mouth of the bottle containing water and connect those two tightly with gum tape. Now rotate the apparatus slowly. So what you have to do, my dear children, you have to place the mouth of the first one with the second one like this, right, which contains water. Then, my dear children, you have to wrap it with using gum tape or else cello tape, and now you have to rotate the apparatus slowly like this according to the figure, right. Then you have to, you can give it out a certain push like this and you can release. Okay, then you can observe how the viral winds are now in here there is water, right, how the water is going to flow from first bottle to the other. In the same way, the viral winds are going to rotate in a cyclone too. So this is the method of doing our experiment, my dear children. So now let's head on to the laboratory. We'll continue with this experiment, and my dear children, we'll observe how the cyclonic air particles travel in a cyclone, my dear children. Okay, so let's head on to the laboratory and we'll continue with the activity over there. Okay, so my dear children, within this activity, now we are going to investigate how does the air currents are going to move in a cyclone or else a typhoon, right? So you know that these things are given with several names according to the area where it is going to happen. So usually these things are named as cyclones. So here now I have prepared the system in order to investigate about the air currents that's going to occur within a cyclone. So there are two bottles, and within one bottle you can observe that there are several paper stripes, small bit of paper stripes, so that you can observe it very carefully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it like this, and I'm going to rotate this thing. So remember, when you're rotating, you have to give out a good rotation in here, right, like this, and you have to turn it to the other side while you are rotating. Okay, now let's turn it to the other side. So while doing that, remember to do like this. Now you can see the structure. See, just when you are turning it upside down, just make sure to give out a small bit of a push so that the air currents will rotate, or else the water current will rotate and go. Okay, so that's how the air currents are going to move within a cyclone. So we'll do it once more. So we'll do it to the other side now, like this, and turn it down, then give out a push like this. See how the air currents are moving? This is the way that air currents are going to move. Okay, so I hope that you got the idea, my dear children. So it's going to circulate and going to travel towards the earth. So this is how the cyclones in a cyclone, this is how the air currents are going to move towards the earth, right then. So I hope that you got the idea, my dear children. So let's head on to the classroom once more and we'll observe the other contents. Right, my dear children. So we have conducted the activity. You could clearly observe how the water is going to flow from one bottle to another like in a spiral manner. So in the same way, my dear children, within a cyclone, the air particles will also travel, right? You can clearly observe how it is going to circulate and travel to the second bottle, right? Actually, by looking at the papers, we can even confirm it. So this is how, right? This is how this circulation of wind within a cyclone is going to occur, right? So we can write down the observation as per we'll write it like this: water came to the second bottle so water came to the second bottle as a viral, right? As a viral, comma, in a spiral manner. Then this way of movement, right? This way of movement in water is identical to the movement of air in a cyclone, right? So this way of movement in water is identical to the movement of air in a cyclone. So we clearly observe how the water is going to flow as a viral or in a spiral manner to the second bottle. This is the way, or for this way, or according to this way, in a cyclone also, right, air particles are going to travel down, right? Okay, then I hope that you got the idea how does the air particles are going to move from one place to another in a cyclone. Okay, right then. So my dear children, so we have understood that how the air moves during a cyclone by doing the experiment over there. So you are given in here, you'll be able to understand how air moves during a cyclone by the movement of water in the bottle placed on the top. During the past century, there were 13 cyclones, right? There were 13 cyclones. See, as a count within the past or within the recent century, right? There were like around 13 cyclones have entered to Sri Lanka from the eastern coast of the country. Among those cyclones, 3 were very powerful cyclones. So there were like 13 cyclones came to Sri Lanka from the eastern coast during the recent century, my dear children. And from those, 3 were, right, terrifying, and the damage given out by 3 cyclones were very high. Okay, you can see the figure of a cyclone. As you can see, now a certain tree has fell down to the ground, blocking the waterways and transportation. and there is heavy rain as well. So it's going to be very difficult to travel within a cyclonic place like this, my dear children. Okay, and also it is going to be quite difficult to do our day-to-day works as well, right? Sometimes, my dear children, even the schools will be given as holidays, right, if a severe condition would come. Then here within this figure, parts of cyclones which entered to Sri Lanka from 1901 to 2000, that means within the recent century, right, you are given with the parts which the cyclones have entered to Sri Lanka. So as you can see here, by looking at the figure, you can clearly observe that cyclones have hit each and every place in our Sri Lanka, my dear children, right? It's somewhat lesser in, at the central part of the country, but however, when you take the other parts, most of the other parts have hit with the cyclones. Okay, right then. So you are given with an assignment, my dear children. Study the above map and prepare a list of districts in Sri Lanka which are prone to cyclones. So you have to prepare a list, okay, of districts which are getting heavily affected by the cyclones. Okay, right. Now let's see the previous map once again. By looking at this, you can clearly observe like in which areas does the cyclones are going to hit the most. When you check these regions from here to over here, this area is going to suffer with cyclones much often. So within these areas, you can identify several, right, districts. So I'm going to write down 3 of those. So you go ahead with the other places like this. And my dear children, I hope that you will find out the other districts also which these cyclones are going to hit the most. Okay, so I'll mention 3. You can clearly observe the Trincomalee area and Batticalow, and also, my dear children, the Jaffna region, right? So I'll mention those 3, right? So it's your responsibility to study about these things, as these assignments are given for you guys, my dear children. So it's very important to do these assignments at your home. I'm just giving out a guide to how to find out these things, right? So it's your responsibility to study about the map given in here. I have mentioned 3. So I hope that you have, right, that you are going to find out the other districts which the cyclones are going to hit, right? So it's very important to do these kinds of activities at your home, my dear children, that these things will definitely, right, give out to your maximum potential of using your knowledge about these theoretical parts given in the books, right? So it's very important to follow up these things and to find out, right? Finding by yourself, that will definitely increase the knowledge carries by you. So it's very important to find out these things by you guys. Okay, so remember these districts were there, right? These districts were there for the districts which the cyclones are going to hurt the most. What are those districts? Trincomalee, Batticalow and Jaffna, right? So I have mentioned 3. I hope that you guys will find out other details as well about the countries that the cyclones are going to hit more often. Okay, right then. So move out to pass that one now. So you are given with another point over here. Using high technology, the Department of Meteorology keeps vigilance over cyclones around 24 hours. In occasions of a probable cyclonic situation to Sri Lanka, the latest information about it are communicated to the relevant government institutions. So the telephone number of the Department of Meteorology is given once again, 011 2 686 and 686. So usually by using different advanced technologies. Within these days, my dear children, not only cyclones but also other problematic situations are being handled, especially regarding the natural disasters, my dear children. Now you know that. Can you remember when when I'm discussing about the basic things related to the natural disasters? I told you that even in Sri Lanka now, within several coastal areas, tsunami warning centers have been implemented. It's mainly because of the recent incident which occurred within the Sri Lanka, right? So therefore, my dear children, because of the development of advanced technologies, right, within nowadays, it's quite easy to predict a certain condition of a cyclone, my dear children. And also the other thing is that, right, cyclones are plenty of going to happen within these regions, within near equator countries, right? So therefore we have to be vigilant about that thing. We have to always find out details, especially during the months of November to December. We have to find out details regarding the weather conditions in Sri Lanka, and also it's quite important to read out the things and listen to the things given in mass media. Okay, so if you have any other further doubts, you can clearly contact the meteorological department to get further details then. Okay, so we have learned about the first and foremost disaster about the cyclones then. Okay, right then. So let's head on to see the next type of disaster. The next type of disaster is the earthquakes, my dear children. Okay, let's see. An earthquake is a jolt or shoulder-like movement of the Earth's surface. It's like a jolt or else a shoulder-like movement in Earth's surface, right? Shoulder-like movement in Earth's surface. Then, less violent earthquakes are known as tremors, right? So, less violent, that means if a certain earthquake is going to happen at a lesser magnitude, then that kind of a thing is called as a tremor. Okay, then earthquakes and earth tremors are caused by the releasing of energy stored in the earth crust. Earthquakes being heavy damages to man-made creations on the earth. So earthquakes and earth tremors are caused by the releasing of energy stored in the earth crust. Earthquakes will bring heavy damages to the man-made creations on the earth, right? So you know that earthquakes are mainly created, right, because of the jolt-like movements or shoulder-like movements within the planet Earth. Okay, especially within the crust of the planet Earth, right? So because of the movement of the crust, earth crust, what will happen, my dear children, right? Disastrous conditions occur to specially to properties, and because of destruction of several properties, right, lives are also getting harmed. So here it is given, earthquakes and earth tremors are caused by the releasing of energy stored in the earth crust. Earthquakes bring heavy damages to man-made creations on the earth. So like I said, these things are going to heavily damage for the creations of man, for the artificial environment, like especially in our simple terms, if I'm going to refer them, right, then we can refer those things as buildings. So for the buildings, earthquakes are going to give a heavy, right, loss or heavy disastrous things. Okay, so my dear children, as you can see here within the figures also, the same site, this is the same site, but my dear children, this is before a earthquake, this is after an earthquake. See how the things have changed. Now earlier it was very calm and quiet and simple, and also, my dear children, it was very clean. But however, right, check how the disaster which has happened after the earthquake. All the buildings which were placed over here crashed down to the road, right? So like I said in the previous point over here, you can clearly see that earthquakes are mainly going to damage the properties built out by humans, right? And because of that, my dear children, human lives and the animal lives will get also harm, right? Because these things can come down to our bodies or bodies of animals, then by that way the people and animals may die. Okay, so this is before an earthquake and after an earthquake, right? And in a certain area which an earthquake has occurred. Okay, so by just looking at the figure, you can see that it's going to be very nasty. Right then, evidences support the fact that the crust, the topmost layer of the earth, is composed of a number of tectonic plates which move relative to one another. Now, you might think that our earth is continuous, our earth crust is continuous. But however, our earth crust is not continuous, my dear children. Our earth crust has been divided into different layers, segments. These layers or these segments are called to as tectonic plates. Tectonic plates, right? These things are called as tectonic plates. So when you take a tectonic plate, my dear children, within a tectonic plate, right, we can observe different countries and different locations. Okay, and within the other tectonic plate, you can observe the other countries. So this is how the earth crust has been created with by the tectonic plates. I mean if you take the earth crust is not continuous. It has been divided into several segments, my dear children. So these segments are referred to as tectonic plates then, right? So the earth crust consists of few large tectonic plates. They can be identified by the following map. Now you are given with a map, my dear children. Here you can observe the tectonic plates. So let's see. Here you can observe the Eurasian plate, right? A somewhat larger plate, Eurasian plate. It's a globe, so when you curve it down, you can observe Eurasian plate over there and here as well. Then North American plate and the Caribbean plate. You can observe two plates over here, North American plate and the Caribbean plate. Then, my dear children, the Philippine plate, the Cocos plate, Australian plate, the Arabian plate, right? Then the South American plate, Nazca plate and the Antarctic plate, right? Actually, this Australian plate is also referred to as the Indo-Australian plate, my dear children, right? The Indo-Australian plate. Within the Indo-Australian plate, Sri Lanka is located within the Indo-Australian plate, okay? Right, so these are the main tectonic plates. So here you can observe the Indian plate separately, right? But however, this entire plate is also named as the Indo-Australian plate, right? So here you can observe the plates, right? The tectonic plates, my dear children, the map of the tectonic plate. So this is how the earth crust has been divided into several segments, right? However, we won't be able to observe these things because that in order to observe this kind of a division, you have to go for a boundary, tectonic plate boundary. But the main thing is most of the tectonic plate boundaries are located within the sea. So we won't be able to observe. However, there are some certain tectonic plates which are located on the ground as well. San Andreas Fault is a good example, right? So if there is a certain boundary like that, then it can be, right, it can be viewed by the naked eye without any trouble, right? So the San Andreas Fault, we can clearly observe the margin between two tectonic plates, okay? Right then, so these are the tectonic plates which the earth crust has been divided into, okay? Then, my dear children, the tectonic plates which form the earth crust move relative to one another. By the activity given, you can understand how this happens. Now, my dear children, the other thing, these tectonic plates which the earth crust has been created with, these tectonic plates are going to move relative to each other, right? These tectonic plates are moving relative to each other, right? Now, by doing a certain activity, we are going to demonstrate how these things are going to move, how the tectonic plates are going to move. Okay. Now, let's see how to do the activity then. So, it's very simple, my dear children. What you have to do, you have to take a container, then you have to add water into the container, then you'll be needing several rigiform sheets, right? And you can color them if you want by using ink. Then what you have to do is you can add these rigiform sheets to the water. Now gently you need to shake the container or give out a certain a vibration to the water and check how the plates are or these sheets are going to move. Okay, right. Now let's see. First of all, we'll name down these materials then, my dear children. Okay, so let's name them. So this is a container. We'll name it as a container, or else a vessel. Then you'll be needing water. Rigiform sheets. Then some ink. Actually, this is not that much important. You can just take the rigiform sheets and without coloring you can enter, right, if you want, right? However, if you can color it, then we can clearly get the observations without any trouble. Okay, right. So the method, as you can see, method is given here, right? Very simple. What you have to do is add water to the container and add some color. Actually, if you want, you can color, right? No problem in coloring the water, right? But however, that is not the thing which is important here. We're going to identify the tectonic plate movements now, so you can keep the water in the itself as without any trouble. Okay, right. Then, my dear children, place small sheets. Place small sheets of rigiform on water container as per to the figure. As per to the figure, place small sheets of rigiform on water container as per to the figure and shake the water. Shake the container to vibrate water. So place small sheets of regiform on water container as per to the figure and shake the container to vibrate water. Then, my dear children, observe the movement of regiform sheets. So this is the activity, my dear children. So what you have to do, it's very simple. You have to add water to the container and add some color. If you want, you can add color, or if you want, you can keep it in the same way, no problem. Okay. Then place small sheets of regiform on water container as per to the figure and shake the container to vibrate water. So you need to place the regiform sheets according to the figure, right? Then you have to shake the container so that it will vibrate the water. Then observe the movement of regiform sheets. Then you have to observe the movement of regiform sheets, right? So this is how to continue the activity, my dear children. Now here main idea is to check, right? Here main idea is to check how does the regiform sheets are going to move within the water, right? Within the water layer. Right then. Now let's head on to our laboratory. We'll continue with the activity, and once again we'll come down to the classroom and we'll write down our conclusions and observations from the experiment.
So my dear children, within this activity, we are going to investigate how does the tectonic plates are going to move relative to each other, right? So to investigate that, I have with me a water container. So this is colored water, right? So there are, and again I have with me several regiform surfaces, right? Cut it to small bit of pieces like this. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to insert these regiform sheets, surfaces, onto the water like this. And my dear children, so these things are now indicating these surfaces are now, or else these sheets, regiform sheets, are indicating, right, the tectonic plates. Okay, so I'll keep it in here somewhat extra, right? So now what we have to do is, we need to gently move this thing, the container, so that the water will move. So we'll move it like this. So as you can see, upon the motion of water container, the water is going to move, and relative to that, you can see very clearly, right, the surfaces, regiform surfaces are also going to move, or regiform sheets are also going to move relative to it. So this is identical to the motion of the tectonic plates. So tectonic plates on our planet Earth is located like this, and there is magma, right? And upon the motion of magma like this, what will happen? The tectonic plates are going to move relative to each other. So that movement is identical to the motion of the tectonic plates or plate tectonics. So this is how the motion of the tectonic plates can be observed. Okay, it's mainly going to occur because of the motion of the magma contained within the mantle of the earth. Okay, right then. So this is how the tectonic plates are going to move, my dear children. So let's head on to the classroom once more, and we'll investigate the other things contained in the lesson there.
Right. So we did the activity, my dear children, and you can clearly observe with the vibration of water, according to that movement, the sheets or the rigiform sheets are going to move within the water. Okay. So we'll write down the observation. Right. So rigiform sheets move on the water with the movement of water. Right. So conclusion is what then? Movement of rigiform sheets identical to the movement of tectonic plates movement of rigiform sheets identical to the movement of tectonic plates in planet Earth. Right. So with the movement of water, rigiform sheets moved on the water. Right. So conclusion is from here, movement of rigiform sheets are identical to the movement of tectonic plates in our planet Earth. Okay. So this is our observation and the conclusion, my dear children. Okay. Right then. So the movement of pieces of polystyrene means rigiform, my dear children, right? So polystyrene correspond to the way the tectonic plate move on semi-solid magma in the upper part of the mantle, right? So within our Earth, you know that Earth has been divided into several parts, right? When we are studying about the structure of the planet Earth in grade 7, we have learned about these several parts, which is referred to as the crust, mantle, and the core, my dear children. So these three parts, my dear children, can clearly be observed within our planet Earth. So upper part of the mantle contains, right, a thing called magma. This is a semi-solid structure or semi-solid layer which is made by molten rocks. When this magma come out to the surface because of the volcanic eruptions or because of these tectonic plate movements, right, then after it is called as lava, right? Within the planet Earth, it is referred to as magma. So with the movement of magma, the tectonic plates on it, right, is also going to move. Actually, it is similar to the previous activity. Now, we are standing on our planet Earth on the Earth crust. However, Earth crust is located on a liquid. So, upon the movement of the liquid, we also move, right? So, this is how it works. Okay. So now we have identified how these things are going to move now, how the tectonic plates are going to show movements now. Now let us identify the types of movements in tectonic plates, my dear children. Okay. So how tectonic plates move? It has been identified that there are three ways of movement of tectonic plates relative to one another at boundaries. So near the boundaries, there are three ways which the tectonic plates can move. So we'll be identifying those three movements then. So there are three movements: convergent movement, then divergent movement, then, my dear children, slip movement. Right? So convergent movement, divergent movement, and a slip movement. This is also called as convergent border, divergent border, and slip border. Okay. This is how, or these are the three main ways which the tectonic plate boundaries are going to move each other. According to these three ways, my dear children, the tectonic plates boundaries will move, right? So these things are also can be named as convergent border, divergent border, and slip border as well. Okay, right. So now let's head on to see the first and foremost one, divergent border, or else divergent movement. So at this border, the two tectonic plates move away from each other. Now this is the tectonic plates, no? And these are the boundaries here and here. So these two move away from each other like this. Okay. So this is an illustration of a divergent border or the divergent movement. So mid-Atlantic ridge is a good example for the divergent border, right? For a divergent movement or else a divergent border, right? So at divergent borders, magma in the upper mantle rises up between the two tectonic plates, and therefore a new crust is created. Most of such tectonic plate borders are located in the oceanic floor. Now most of these things are located within the oceanic floor, my dear children. So you are given with an example, mid-Atlantic ridge. Here you can observe the mid-Atlantic ridge. So this is the example for the divergent borders. Okay, right. Then the next one, convergent border. Now let's see what is a convergent border then. Now in the divergent border or in a divergent movement, my dear children, the two tectonic plates moved away from each other. Now the convergent means the opposite of that thing, no? So it should move to, it should move near, like towards each other, right? In a convergent movement. Now let's see. At this border, two tectonic plates collide and one plate moves underneath the other. Volcanoes erupt in the regions which these movements occur. So here what will happen, my dear children? Here one plate will come towards the other plate like this. So when there's a certain movement like this, now you know that these two plates are getting tightly pushed each other, no? So once again you see like this, one will come up and the other one will goes down like this. See, like this, as the two layers are, or as the two plates are getting tightly coming close to each other like this, one will definitely jump up and the other one will push down. So this kind of a movement is called as a convergent border or else a convergent movement, right? So here volcanoes erupt in the regions in which these movements occur. Within these regions where the convergent borders are going to, which the convergent movements are going to occur, right? What will happen? Definitely there is going to be volcanic eruptions. Okay. So example given for this kind of a convergent border, my dear children, St. Helena's Mount, right? Within the St. Helens Mount, you can observe this kind of a convergent border, St. Helens Mount. So the diagram of the St. Helens Mount is given in here, right? So this is the two plates and the magma and the St. Helens Mount peak, right? So here when this plate is going downward, pushing the second one up, definitely the magma level will increase, and right, what will happen? It will come out from the mountain peak. Okay, so this is the second movement or the second border, the convergent border, right? Now let's head on for the third one. Here's slip border or else slip movements. Let's see. At this border, the two tectonic plates move away from each other while being in contact. Now these two are being in contact and they are moving away from each other like this. Okay. Sometimes the tectonic plates are crammed into each other during the movements. Violent earthquakes may happen when lot of energy is collected during the movements. So sometimes they will cram into each other and they will slide past each other within the slip border or within the slip movements. In here, my dear children, within the areas somewhat closer to the border will face heavy earthquakes. Okay, so example given, St. Andreas Fault. St. Andreas Falls. Can you remember when I was starting the lesson part, I told you about the St. Andreas Fault. So this is that St. Andreas Fault. Okay, so you can observe the St. Andreas Fault in the given diagram over here. So it's a good example for slip border movements. Okay, right then. So now we have studied about the three types of movements now. Convergent movements, convergent border movements, divergent border movements, and the slip movements, slip border movements. Now my dear children, we are going to demonstrate these three movements by doing a certain activity. So here, by the activity given, you will get an understanding about how the tectonic plates move on the earth crust. So understanding about how the tectonic plates move on the earth crust. So materials, just one material, will be needing a boiled egg. Okay. Right, this is the only material you need, right? Remember, this egg should be, right, this egg should be boiled one, and definitely the shell should be there, right? Don't remove the shell. With the shell you have to boil. Okay, right then. Now let's head on to see the method. Demonstration of the earth crust and the movement of tectonic plates. Then here, tap a boiled egg on the table and make several cracks on it. So you have to tap the boiled egg on the table, or you can use the finger. Then you have to make some cracks as per to the given figure. Okay. The shell of the egg corresponds to the earth crust and the egg white underneath it correspond to the upper crust. Right. So actually there is a small bit of a mistake in here, my dear children. In your textbook also you have to make this correct, right? Within this activity there is a small bit of a mistake which is given in here. Now let's recorrect it. So shell of the egg correspond to the earth crust. That's okay. You already know the shell of the egg is going to correspond with the crust of the earth. But check the next one. The egg white underneath it correspond to the upper crust. There's no such thing as upper crust, right? It should be upper mantle. So in your textbook also there is a small bit of a mistake. It should be mantle, right? Okay. Color the boundaries of the cracks using a marker. Take the egg onto the palm and squeeze it gently so that edges move back and forth. Now what do you have to do? You have to take the egg. If you want, you can color the margins, or else just by squeezing it, you can observe the movements, right? So our main idea is to observe the movements which is going to happen within the borders and identify the three types of movements, my dear children. Okay, Right, so I hope that you got the idea, my dear children. So let's head on to the laboratory and we'll continue with the experiment, and once again we'll come back to the classroom to write down our observations and conclusions.
So my dear children, here now within this activity we'll be investigating how does the movements of tectonic plates will occur, right? So we're going to investigate especially the types of tectonic plates that we can identify by using this boiled egg. So this boiled egg is going to behave like our surface of the earth, right? Or else our planet earth. So the outer covering or else the outer eggshell, that's identical to the earth crust. Okay, it's identical to the earth crust. You know that our earth crust is has been separated into several tectonic plates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this and I'm going to crack this thing like this, so that it will create several cracks. So now we have cracks like this. So these cracks are now identical to the these cracks are now identical to the tectonic plates on our planet Earth. So I'll include a one in here also. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give out a small bit of a squeeze like this and turn it like this. Right, now let's see the margins. As you can see here, when you take this surface, my dear children, see here this surface has come up, right? So as you can see here, when I'm squeezing it, this surface has come up. See, this surface has come up. Here, this surface has gone towards it. So it is identical to the convergent movement. Okay, it's identical to the convergent movement. So let's come to here. So once again, here also you can see a convergent movement. See, let's come way back to here. And okay, over here, when you observe it over here, see, now this particular surface has moved to that direction, and because of that you can see that small bit of an opening can be observed within here. It's because now during the motion, now when I'm going to squeeze it like this, you know that these things are going to move like that. See, so because of that motion, my dear children, this particular surface is going to travel downward and this particular surface is coming upward. So this is identical to the slip movements then. They slide past each other to opposite directions. Then when I'm going to squeeze it like this, right, at this side, see, in here, and I'm going to squeeze it like this in here. Can you see that? See, this particular surface, see, it comes, see, it comes towards my side, and this particular surface is coming to your direction. So this is a divergent movement, my dear children. It's identical to a divergent movement, right? Because this particular surface is coming when I'm squeezing it like this. See, when I'm squeezing it like this, see, this particular surface is going to your direction and this particular surface is coming to my direction. So it's identical to the divergent movement. So convergent movements, divergent movements, and slip movements. So by doing this activity, we can clearly identify the three main types of tectonic plate movements, right? So I hope that you got the idea about the tectonic plates then. So let's head on to the classroom once more and we'll investigate the other things related to the lesson.
Right, my dear children, so we did the activity. You could clearly observe how does the tectonic plate movements or how does that movements within the cracked eggshell is going to occur. So by that way we can identify the movements which is going to happen within the our planet Earth, within the tectonic plates. Okay, so we'll write down our observations. The three types of mention like this within the observation. You have to write down the things which you can observe now. So here we'll write borders when compressing the egg. So when compressing the egg, borders of the cracked shell moved. Okay, so conclusion is three types of movements convergent, divergent, and slip can be clearly right. So three types of movements, the convergent, divergent, and slip, can be clearly identified by the experiment. So borders of the cracked shell moved when compressing the egg, right? So when compressing the egg, borders moved, my dear children. Okay, let me take you to the previous slide once more. Like this, these are the borders. Now when I was squeezing it, you could clearly observe these things are going to move, right? So this is how we can see, or we can conclude that these movements are identical to the tectonic plate movements. Okay, right. So our observation was quite simple. Borders of the cracked shell moved when compressing the egg. Okay, and conclusion is three types of movements like the convergent, divergent, and slip can be clearly identified by the experiment. That was our final conclusion then. So I hope that you got the clear idea about tectonic plate movements, my dear children. Okay, remember these movements can be clearly visible within a certain boundary. Right, my dear children. So this is our observation and conclusion from the activity. Now let's head on to see the three types of movements once more. Number one, when squeezed, it can be seen that at some, so here it should be points, right? Points. So here I have corrected it. When squeezed, it can be seen that at some points of the cracks, the pieces of shell move apart. These points correspond to divergent borders. So move apart means going away from each other. So these points are correspond to the divergent borders then. Okay. Next one. At some other places, it appears that some pieces come closer. Such places illustrate convergent borders. So can you remember when I'm squeezing it and I have shown you that how two borders come closer to each other. So it is a convergent border, my dear children. Then in third one, in some other places, it appears that the pieces of shell move forward and backward relatively. Those places correspond to slip borders. Now, when I'm squeezing it, I think you could clearly observe some borders like slide past each other. This kind of a border or this kind of a movement is called as a slip border then. Okay. So, the three movements can be observed within the shell of the egg, and those three movements are identical to the convergent, divergent and slip borders, my dear children. Okay. Right then. So, for extra knowledge, another thing is given in here. Compared to the earth, the thickness of the crust is only 2% of its diameter. Compared to the diameter of an average egg, the thickness of the shell is also 2% of it. So, specialty in here is that, my dear children, when you take the planet Earth and when you compare the entire structure of the planet Earth, the other parts like the core and the mantle, it contains about 98% of the Earth. But however, the crust is only about 2%. When you compare the egg, the eggshell is also like 2% of the entire egg, and the others are containing 98%. So, the egg and the planet Earth, the structure, when you take the structure, the three areas in as a percentage, they show same or equal percentage value, my dear children. So, crust is like 2% from the planet Earth. Shell of an egg is also 2% of the entire shell, All the other parts are giving out like 98% of the entire, entire area or entire surface from the egg or from the planet Earth, my dear children. Okay. So, these two are somewhat identical to when you take the egg is somewhat identical to the composition of our planet Earth then, So, can you remember during the previous grades, in grade 7, my dear children, we have even taken the egg, a boiled egg, and we cut it into pieces to identify the layers of the planet Earth, Okay then. So, with that one, my dear children, we have finished up a certain chapter related to the earthquakes. Here we studied about the tectonic plates, the structure of the earth, like the crust, mantle and the core. And my dear children, we studied about the plate tectonics. That means the movements related to the tectonics. We studied about three different border movements: convergent, divergent and slip. Okay. So, within our next chapter, we'll be learning about further things related to the earthquakes, my dear children. In our next chapter, we'll be mainly focusing about intensity of an earthquake and how to measure the strength of an earthquake by using the certain scale, However, we'll be focusing about those things in our next chapter, my dear children. So, I hope that you will stay with me till the end of the lesson to get sound knowledge about these natural disasters. So, I'm hoping to meet you guys with our next chapter to discuss the further things related to the lesson part then.
To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.